this is the neurotypical person. Okay, the neurotypical person, if they are isolated, if they are alone, they will have, chronic health problems, their blood pressure, immune system, GI health. If I'm alone and I'm a neurotypical person, my whole body is responding to that rejection and that isolation. I know it's different if you are neurodivergent. I know that sometimes my solace, my preferred place is being alone and being in isolation. So that's part of the gap that you're talking about, where the neurodivergent person is saying, I don't get it. I could be okay to just spend this evening alone. And then my spouse is saying, I really want to go out on this date with you. You don't want to go out with me? That's because the neurotypical spouse is really dialed into that, that pain signal.
So what I'm hearing you say then is, if there's been repeated not going on dates or not wanting to eat family dinner, like the family's eating at the table, but you're going to go eat in your office, or, if the wife wants to sleep together, but he doesn't want to sleep together, so all these things that kind of represent rejection can feel the same in her brain to a kick to the stomach or a punch to the face, as far as how her brain is registering that pain.
It's very visceral. It's very visceral. And then go to the attachment, rupture, the attachment injury. If it was in a moment when I was really needing that solace, that comfort, and then I couldn't find you, this is a huge setback in my central nervous system and my capacity to be trusting. It's not about forgiveness. It's about trust. At the bottom line, that's what we're looking at.
So speak a little bit about expectation, because a lot of what we're talking about here is really subjective. There is some level of objectivity to it, just from I suppose, a physiological perspective, but a lot of how we interpret, and a lot of, I guess, when we actually get hurt, is a mismatch in expectations. So speak to what just expectation management is in this attachment world a little.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's why, relationships are ongoing. There never has to be a dull moment, because our needs and our perceptions and our expectations, they are changing. I'm not saying we're high maintenance, although maybe one spouse feels that the other one is kind of high maintenance, but it is in flux. It's changing. So it's that can be where it's tough. If I'm, neurodivergent, to keep track of this ebb and this flow in my spouse, right? And then my spouse has this expectation of me. My perception is my reality, and we can't change that for either spouse in the equation, right? We have to honor that. We have to get to know each spouse's side of whatever particular story it is, and I need to appreciate, if I'm the neurotypical spouse, I need to appreciate it when my autistic spouse is doing the best that they can, and they're stepping forward and they're trying and they're being intentional, even if it looks different than my expectation or my preference. I need to appreciate where my spouse is coming from. And if I'm the neurodivergent spouse and I look over and my neurotypical spouse is hurting and grieving, I need to find some kind of way, even though, they're different than me, I need to find some kind of way to appreciate that their felt reality is pain in that moment, even if I didn't intend to inflict that on there. And so I
need to actually understand that? Can you match an expectation without truly understanding the depth or the cause, the motivation of the mismatched expectation?
And this is where I think we get into sort of the double empathy problem, right, gang? Where, I would like it if my spouse could sort of feel what I feel. I would like it if, when I bring my hurt feelings to them, I would like it if, when I bring my hurt feelings to my spouse, if they could sort of feel what I'm experiencing, I could come away from that feeling felt. Like that's the neurotypical person's gold standard, right? Like that's the thing. When I look into your eyes and I can see mirror neurons, gang. Like I can literally look in your eyes and I can see reflected on your face that there's a little bit of sadness when I'm sad. There's a little bit of compassion when I'm hurt. There's a little bit of sympathy. That sends all of these safety signals to me that I can say, he gets it. He knows what I'm going through. And that's just that little bit of insurance that he's going to pause before he would act in that manner again. So it's ideal. It's ideal if I can literally see my emotional pain registered on your face. Not everybody feels emotional pain the same way, especially when, one spouse is neurotypical and one spouse is neurodivergent. I think y'all are going to ask me a question. I'll pause.
Yeah. So that leads then to the next question we get. The neurotypical spouse will say something like, well, if he doesn't understand it, then how do I know he won't do it again? Right. So that's her concern. And the neurodivergent spouse might say, well, if that same thing happened to me, so let's just say maybe he said something rude or harsh or terse. And for her, that's registering a 6 on the pain scale, but that registers a 0.5 on his scale. Because if you could say the same thing to me and it wouldn't bother me.
Yeah.
But you're saying it's like a 5 or 6. I don't get that. I'll hear this all the time. I can't feel remorse for something I don't think is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you coach people if their wife has come and said, this has caused me all this pain, and he said, okay, I'll just have to believe you, that was painful. And she's like, you're not really showing much remorse over this. Like, I need something a little bit more. Oh, what do you want me to do? Tear my clothes and put ashes on my head like David did? Like, what do you want from me? Mm-hmm. How do we get past this? She needs some kind of remorse or something that says I'm bridging towards you versus, well, I mean, you're just really high maintenance and too bad you have all these really high needs. And man, it kind of sucks to be you that you get hurt that easy. That's not really doing it.
Yeah. So maybe compassion is a better metric for us to go after when there's a double empathy problem. In other words, the wounded spouse in this example, the neurotypical spouse, is looking for this deeply felt emotional remorse, from the wounding spouse, right? And if she doesn't get that, then she says, well, there's no compassion here. There's nothing that I can bank on. Ideally, again, her nervous system is wired to look for the mirror neurons that reflect back to her in a moment that he gets it, he feels with me, and honestly, that's the straight path. Like that's the quick, sigh of relief. I can let down my guard. So I'm not going to sugarcoat that. That's the fastest pathway in, because feelings are fast, emotions move very quickly, and that's the quickest pathway. But if there's a double empathy problem, like if the neurodivergent spouse just doesn't feel things in that same way, he still can, or she still can, show up with compassion. And that's like, I don't feel the same as you feel, but I know that this is a big deal for you. And if I'm hearing your protest as a signal of a need for me and a need to do this repair, as opposed to I'm like a failure, I'm inadequate, I'm not trustworthy. If I can hear it as a cry for help, then I can show up. I mean, I almost think about it, maybe this is a little bit too extreme, but if one of y'all only spoke Mandarin, I don't personally speak Mandarin. Okay. But if you were communicating to me in Mandarin, and I could tell by like the persistence and the frequency that you had some kind of need, well, then I would stop in my track, and I'd end up doing some kind of sign language, right? Trying to figure out what is the need. We speak 2 different languages, but I can still show you compassion. I can show you that I care. I'm taking this serious. I tell my guys, serious as a heart attack. This is stopping me in my tracks. Maybe I don't feel what you feel, but there's something here. And by the way, the neurotypical spouse, in this example, she's going to be less high maintenance when she feels cared for and responded to. That's the negative cycle. Like the more she feels uncared for and ignored, the more she's going to repeat herself. Conversely, if she feels noticed and valued and listened to, then there's at least a dialing back of the intensity and the frequency, because I've got him on my wavelength. Even if it's not an emotional wavelength, he's dialing into this channel. He's trying to tune into that frequency. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So if there's that, there's been, I brought the hurt to you, and there's some compassion to try to bring some sort of remorse and compassion. So then what does making that repair look like? So just me saying my hurt and you say, I get it. I feel badly that you feel badly. That's important. But
right.
What starts repairing the relationship?
Yeah. So let's improve the double empathy problem here, where both sides are having a hard time empathizing. They don't speak the same language. Okay. But let's first of all, let's stick with the neurotypical spouse who has been wounded, and, honestly, in that moment, they are going to have a hard time having like an intellectual response to their need. They need some kind of intensity, even if it's not like soft and syrupy and sad, but they need some kind of showing up and some kind of a way that the neurodivergent spouse is saying, I take you seriously. Like I need to bring all that I have to this, and I need to not be defensive, right? So a defensive response would be, well, I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt, or there's those feelings again. I don't know what to do with all of that. It's very different to say, if I'm the wounding spouse, listen, I'll be honest, I don't get this. I don't fully understand this, but this is very significant. I know this is significant because you keep repeating it. And I believe it's like a step of faith. I believe that the reason you're repeating this is because this is so important. Our connection is so important. So I'm not going to just say, I'm sorry that you got your feelings hurt. I'm going to say, I am sorry that I hurt you. There's something that I did. I don't maybe even fully understand it, but there's something that I did, and I own it. I own that I've done something that ruptured our bond. And I don't even necessarily understand it fully, but I can tell there's something here. And then, serious as a heart attack, I'm showing up because this matters and you matter. I don't have to feel everything that you're feeling, but I can't be distancing myself from it. I'm leaning into it.